Possession crucial from this. How much longer will the referee allow? Dublin lead by a point, and there's the whistle. It's over. It's over.
We earned it by winning the last 2 matches on the road, and that's not going to be taken away from us.
But what I love in hurling, I love players that will never give in.
He hits it. It's over the bar. Oh, holy Moses.
Hello, welcome to the RTÉ GAA Podcast. Mikey, Stafford and Rory O'Neill with you on a Monday morning, and we've been joined by Enda McGinley, so back on a very exciting weekend of Gaelic football. We won't dwell too much on the quality of it, but it was exciting. And Shane McGrath will be along later to look at the hurling, which was less exciting and quality-wise. We'll get onto that too. But happy Monday morning to everybody. Enda, how are you doing?
I'm good, yeah.
Rory, you got back safely from Ardee, where you were witnessed your boys getting a pay from the unstoppable machine.
Yeah, it's incredible. Look, I think you'd have to, and there's no better person really, I suppose, to contextualise the achievement by Mickey Harte than Enda. So I'm not going to dwell on it too long, and I'm sure people would much prefer to hear what Enda has to say. But I think in terms of achievement, if they turn Dublin over next weekend, I would rank it up there as one of the greatest managerial feats in the history of Gaelic football. To go from Division 4 to Division 1, to, work with the kind of playing population that he has. They play a defensive style, but every team plays a defensive style. Yesterday, they never panicked. They were in trouble in that first half, 7-2 down. Cork were actually playing quite well, and then in the space of 5 minutes managed to shoot themselves in both feet. I thought the penalty was slightly harsh. Sean Powter is a very disciplined tackler. I didn't think he fouled. I didn't think it was a foul. He's probably Cork's best tackler in many ways. But look, he gave the penalty. Mihal nearly saved it. Burns followed up with a very good rebound. And then a couple of minutes later, Daniel O'Mahony gets sent off. And I think then they're facing into a second half with a very strong wind. And Louth basically got their tails up. They have some really good players, play a very, very good system, are extremely fit. And they've gone through a league campaign where they've beaten Meath, Kildare, Cork, teams that would probably consider themselves, with lofty ambitions. And it's we're
exceptionally unlucky not to beat Clare.
And took Derry all the way as well, by the way.
Yeah.
Took Derry all the way. One of the few teams to do so. And I just think what's going on there is just nothing short of extraordinary. Will it be enough to turn Dublin over? Probably not. But I wouldn't say it's a foregone conclusion.
Absolutely not. You're being a bit harsh on the Taoiseach's son there, nearly saving the penalty. He did save the penalty.
Yeah, it was a poor penalty. No, it was a poor penalty.
I'd say you're probably chuckling away to yourself there, Enda, now, and probably can feel it start burning your chest when Rory says Louth look incredibly fit. You can remember those days. No better man to get a team fit than Mickey Harte.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's more the desire and belief that he instills in the team makes the players drive themselves to get fit and increases your own willingness to endure that bit of pain on the pitch. It becomes a badge of honour then, what you put yourself through in the pitch, and you can be as fit a person in the world, but unless you have that actual real desire and the belief and that sense of purpose, then it's not going to counter. It's not going to look like anything on the day. And that's he comes to his fore in that there. Been working with him 2-3 years now. Absolutely, as Rory says, the story, because they got beat in their first 2 games, people sort of took their eyes off the ball and presumed them and Limerick them and Limerick are going to struggle, and Derry and Dublin were going to do what to do, and yet they've just got on with business. Like, again, we were speaking a wee bit of before we started about the difference in where we are now, looking at teams compared to after the first 2 weeks, when we can remember all the narratives at that stage. Meath were flying, Colin O'Rourke was going to suddenly sort of ignite Meath. Nobody was talking about Louth, and yet suddenly here we are several weeks later, and it's a very, very different conversation.
It's almost like we don't know what we're talking about, Enda.
Almost, or it's almost as if this.
Well, I had him pegged for relegation, and I don't mind saying it. You know, I thought they would be, because I went to the Division 3 and 4 league finals last year, and I actually thought the Division 4 final between Cavan and Tipperary was a higher quality game than Louth Limerick. So I have no problems in saying I thought they would struggle in Division 2, and. You know, I mean,
it's impressive.
One game away from Division 1 football. It's extraordinary.
You were there.
They will relish it. Yeah. They will relish it next week. Oh my god.
Rory, you were there. Like, it's it's impressive what they're doing when you consider they're missing probably their best two players, midfielder Kieran Byrne and without doubt Sam Mulroy, who is the most outside of Leitrim's Byrne. He is the most in-form forward in the country. But you say they play defensively, Rory. You tell us, like, the spread of scores, it's what's really impressive. Conor Early a point, Tommy Dernan 2, Liam Jackson 2, Conor Grimes 1, Derek McConnon 1, Kieran Downey 2, 1 from play, and Ryan Burns the goal. Like, every forward, I think, scored. Except, Niall Sharkey. Every forward scored. There's a lovely spread of scores there for a defensive team.
And the quality of some of the scores. I mean, I don't know if there's any highlights floating around. I'm sure there might be at some point. Like some of the kicking, I mean, they use the wind to their advantage. Ardee is obviously like it's a good place for them in that, like, you know, they have that place well figured out in terms of the conditions. And Cork sat in the second half. They had no choice against the wind. They just took their scores from distance. They kicked a couple of monsters from outside the 45. And I don't care whether you're with the wind or not. These were absolute top quality stuff. Like, I mean, it was. Yeah, I just, you know, look, all you can do is say good luck to them. I think they were the better side on the day. They deserved their win. Thought I saw it mentioned. It was the first win in something like 60 years over Cork.
66
I mean, they
years.
Is it? Yeah. I know but like, it's just, I think you might be going back, is it to the 1957 All-Ireland football final? Is it? I think when Padraig Harrington's father was playing for Cork that day. But anyway, it's just, I think it's an unbelievable story, and I think it's going to be it'll be the game to look forward to nearly most next weekend, given the fact that Dublin might do what everyone else has done and maybe, you know, be slightly complacent in their approach to them.
So you were watching Dublin Enda obviously on Saturday evening. You were on duty for RTÉ television. 219 to 111 winners. It kind of rang back to previous Meath Dublin meetings, unfortunately, where Meath seemed to be a little bit naive. So we might get onto this later. You have some counties who are playing an excessively defensive form of football at the moment, which is frustrating. But I don't think Meath fans will be any less frustrated by the style of football that they kind of adopted against. They tried yet again to go toe to toe with Dublin, which is just. It's just like throwing raw meat to a lion, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it was certainly ambitious, and as Rory was saying, against the wind too in the first half. So with Dublin with the wind, they went at it, and no, Dublin cut them to shreds. The arrival of Cillian O'Gara, probably the most eye-catching thing from a Dublin point of view. Otherwise, it was just very business as usual. It was very impressive. I sort of rewatched actually the first half last night, and one of the things I suppose that struck me that I didn't see watching live, actually Meath had plenty of possession. They had actually a good few shots themselves, poor shots, but they were kicking into that wind. Dublin were manic in the tackling in their defence, probably a sharper level of tackling, more crowded. They were pulling players back, going aggressively, cutting the space from Meath, choking them out, getting the turnovers. And then the problem was that Dublin were just kicking the ball up 60, 70 yard passes into acres of space. The likes of Brian Fenton running on with acres of space, Costello, Con O'Callaghan, O'Gara, and it was just far too easy. Like, I'm sure if I was a Meath forward, I was seeing them sometimes they'd get on the ball, and the battering they were taking, trying to get out of 2 or 3 men to try and get a pass away. And yet the Dublin forwards were running around without a hand being laid on them, and acres of space to try and work a score. So it was difficult. That first half was difficult. In the second half, Meath held parity with Dublin, really, up until the end. Dublin got the breakaway goal, but the damage was done in the first half. Dublin's attacking was excellent, but it's hard to read into how excellent it was whenever they were playing with so much space.
Yeah, the breakaway goal, Rory, I laughed so hard watching it. It was as you know, my feelings on, between Kieran Kilkenny fisting points when there's a goal on, or just in general Dublin's love of the ball palmed across the goal for Dean Rock or Cormac Castle, whoever.
And there was a wee case in the first half where Colin tried to play in Killian O'Gara for the fist,
just
and
overreach.
it went too high. Kieran Kilkenny would have been eating Colin, just fist that over the bar, son.
So then you have Killian O'Gara, who, my God, he got the speed in that family compared to his brother. My God, the chap has wheels. Anyway, he runs 80 yards, takes the pass from Merchant, bearing down on goal, and there's just this little twitch. It's brilliant. He's like, I'm supposed to hand pass it now, and he actually went to hand pass it, and he stopped himself. Said, oh wait, no, I'm 4 yards from goal with only the keeper in front of me, and I've just run 80 yards. I might as well just drive it in myself. Rory, he seems quite the player, but he hasn't played much, but he's been programmed. He's already a Dublin forward.
He does have a very dynamic edge, and I thought Dublin in that first half, Enda mentioned, it was very business as usual. It looked like they were back doing all the things, but they were allowed to. I mean, I was struck by how Meath approached them. I think about a year or so ago, we'd Eamon Fitzmaurice on, and we were talking about Pádraig Joyce, and we were mentioning how Joyce kind of went into the Galway job with lofty ambitions about trying to play football the right way and trying to play like good with a kind of a Galway panache and the classic Galway style. And then, as Eamon said, there's nothing like a dose of realism to put pay to the idealism, and pragmatism kicks in, and you just have to move with the times. And I think we're probably seeing something similar in Meath with Colm. Colm will probably have to bite the bullet on this. Like we saw it again in the athletic grounds. Yeah, it's ugly when two teams cancel each other out. What actually gets cancelled is a game of football, but that's just how Gaelic football is probably played. And when two teams set up like that, and I think you got to give yourself a chance to get a foothold and a platform in the game. And to go out at the start, I felt me very, very naive, disappointing. And I think their confidence will take a battering. It's going to make it difficult for them now in that Leinster Championship, because going back to Louth, I mean, who wouldn't back against Louth making a Leinster final? I certainly wouldn't.
Absolutely not. So you have the Division 2 is the tournament the Leinster Championship could be. We have Louth and Dublin playing off for promotion, and Kildare and Meath both now safe because Limerick and Clare have gone through the trapdoor. Clare can't do anything on the head-to-head. So, but could still get dragged into the Tailteann Cup. I mean, I think that's
Cavan
what I mean.
I think Cavan will have a great chance of making an Ulster final. Looking at the form of Armagh and Donegal, particularly, Cavan will say to themselves, "We can make this Ulster final."
So Meath Kildare actually matters, and because who finishes 5th and 6th in Division 2, and I think is gonna, as Rory says, it's very likely come the end of April or start of May, we'll realise how important it is. I don't know, can we say there's a Kildare revival? They scored their first goals since May of last year. That's one of them was a back heel. So have they found their vavavoom? I don't know.
Whenever you're sliding down the hill, anything at all just to get your foothold, just to stop your descent is what you're wanting, and Kildare got that against Limerick. So it's now on from here, but it is amazing. Look, it will be amazing to see how this season, how our opinion on teams completely changes as this season progresses. Kildare have a long way to go, there's no doubt about that, but it's repairing the morale, it's repairing the ambition and the belief. But you can't do that until you get the first win, and however you fall over the line, you fall over that line, and then on you go from there. And there is nothing to bond a team together more than having come through adversity, where everybody from the outside has been taking pot shots, where they've been written off for everybody. It has been manna from heaven for years for GAA teams. When you're out in the wilderness, all of that stuff, when you get the first inklings of hope, then that's around the dressing room wall, and it's we're out now, and it's only us, because all of the detractors that have heard all of that for ages, and then they realise, look, the only people that really truly believe this is inside this group, and away we go. It's circle the wagons time. I'm speaking like a very Tyrone man there, but that's...
You say Tyrone football, it could be Kilkenny Hurling. They live in the long grass.
Like, absolutely. Exactly. It is a powerful place to be. Whether Kildare make any of this or not, but it has been said ad infinitum over the past several weeks, they do have the talent. Their championship campaign last year was impressive. Their Division 1 campaign last year wasn't too shoddy. So they haven't become a suddenly inept team overnight. Whether they build on this, well, we'll see.
Yeah, absolutely. Rory, thankfully we no longer have to talk about Derry's striving there to get to Division 1. They got there, and Jesus, they didn't leave anything to doubt. 14 points to 4 against poor Clare. I don't know if you text David Tuberty. I didn't. I'll leave him be after. So we said it's a long drive to Derry. I said the drive home was even longer. That was Jesus. They just put out their full strength team and just absolutely battered them. There's no. They might take the foot off the pedal now, but there's been no foot off the pedal for Rory Gallagher's Derry. And if there's one team who we can say have a form line and who probably look a lot like the look in Championship, it could be Derry.
No, listen. Hopefully, they take their foot off the pedal. They're going to Cork and Creeve next weekend, so I hope he wraps a few of them up in cotton wool, and he probably won't. I mean, he tends to, I think Eamon mentioned it as well on a previous podcast that we were doing. Momentum is a hard thing to get, and it's not exactly something you want to relinquish when it's going well for you. So I'd imagine they'll go down to Páirc Uí Chaoimh as well next weekend and put on a show. And I think they're just a good bit ahead of probably everybody in Division 2 with the exception of Dublin. I think that Division 2 league final, if Dublin do manage to get there, will be a very interesting encounter. And yeah, I think Derry, look, they're right up there now, one of the top teams in the country. Didn't really see a huge amount of this game, obviously, yesterday. One thing I would say from a Clare perspective, though, the prospect of the Tailteann Cup is a very real one for them now. Now they will still feel that they could turn Cork over in Ennis in a Munster semi-final. But if they did end up the Tailteann Cup, I think Clare could win that. I think Clare should aim to go and try and win it. I think they would potentially be the best team in it, potentially, now that is. I think they have some very, very good young players. I know it was a chastening experience for them yesterday, but look, Derry are at a different level to an awful lot of teams. I do firmly believe that Derry are the best team in Ulster, and they're playing in Division 2, which is a bit odd. So look, they're back. They're rightfully in Division 1 now. But from Clare's perspective, they've got some good young players. They shouldn't beat themselves up too much. If it's the Tailteann Cup, so be it. Go and win it. And, you have to bear in mind, last year, they knocked Roscommon out of the championship. They made the last 8. They're a good side. They've got some good young players. UL went to the final of this year, Sigerson. Half the team are young Clare lads. They've got, there is plenty of good playing potential there. So I don't think it needs to be this sort of death sentence that everybody sometimes makes it.
And they're lucky, Enda, that in Colin Collins they have the most experienced manager in the country, pretty much. So he, as much as they were known for their Division 2 status for 7 years, I can't imagine Colin Collins built the team's identity on it or anything else. So they have a carrot now in the Munster Championship, which is to make the All Ireland. As Rory says, if they don't, they go into the Tailteann Cup with, which we all hope. Like last year, teams took it seriously. Westmeath won it. It was a great story. And Westmeath have now decided to take the league off, maybe, because they're already in the All Ireland. Yeah. But you'd hope as a carrot, and as Rory says, this is a good young team, and no shot for 27 minutes and no score in the first half isn't probably a fair reflection on Clare, I don't think.
Yeah, no, look, Owen Begg's a tough place to go to. You look at Clare's league campaign, and realistically, they're probably the unluckiest team in the country. Yeah. They probably got a wee bit of luck against Louth, but they paid for that heavily by losing any semblance of luck over the next several games. They should be safe. realistically, but they're not, and so they'll take their punishment. But a wee bit like other teams that have went down, it's Cavan is probably the easiest example straight away to look at. Derry potentially, but there's a massive management there change with Derry that has just completely changed their county, which we'll talk about. But Cavan went down. It was the COVID year that Cavan got relegated into 4. They'd slipped into 3, probably just didn't get the heads focused, and suddenly found themselves in that COVID sort of truncated league, suddenly down and surprise loss and down into Division 4. They knew they weren't there, and they bounced back and they rebuilt. They didn't become too despondent. They didn't wring their hands too much about it. They just got going, and they're heading back to 2 now in fine fettle. So I think with the round robin things, there's a real good chance that all the teams can turn around their seasons now, and the game's still to come. And as I say, we'll be looking at the league skirmishes as just early as we would the pre-season competitions, which I'm not sure too many of us could rule off too many results from that. But Derry, just so impressive, like so impressive. It's their sheer consistency. Dublin, the greatest mark of that Dublin team, was their sheer consistency, game after game, and you really did wonder. So previously I was talking about that mindset that you can get into and reel backs against the wall and you produce these huge performances. And it's a different level for a team just to go out game on game and hit that level, and that's where they're at. Like they say, what consistency is the true mark of excellence. Well, that's where they're at the minute. I don't know what special place in hell awaits a Derry player if they are shown on video to have missed tackling opportunity or something, because even in the first half yesterday, their tackling level, the intensity of that was through the roof. And it just got Clare, as you say, 28 minutes before they had a shot on goal. Phenomenal stuff. Very, very dominant up front. Plenty of people chipping in with scorers again. They are cruising. And yes, I'll be fascinating next week. Will Rory Gallagher play a second string team? Will he take
He doesn't have a second string team. He's only got about 11 subs.
Well, very true. But it's phenomenal. Like that same team practically has been starting every game of the McKenna Cup and into the National League. Again, how they maintain that during the rest of this year will be a thing that loads of management teams will be looking at in terms of making plans for next year and how you deal with the new calendar.
Yeah, it's interesting. We'll get on. I'll just briefly run people through the permutations, Division 3 and 4, but after that we might get on to Mayo, who are kind of similar to Derry in a way that, you know, how they're approaching the season is as interesting and as impressive as the football they're playing, because the football they're playing is very impressive. But just to mention, yes, as you said, Cavan are up, and Fermanagh play Cavan at the weekend. They win, they go up with them. If Cavan don't take the foot off the pedal and beat Fermanagh, then Offaly can go up by beating Down, but Down can't go up because of the head-to-head. So it would be an amazing story if Offaly got promoted. I think absolutely incredible. Very emotional scenes down at Semple Stadium where they played Tipperary, another one of Liam Kearns' former teams, and they effectively relegated Tipperary. So Longford, Tipperary are down. Division 4, you need a PhD in maths. Leitrim play Sligo. If Leitrim beat Sligo and Laois and Wicklow beat London and Waterford, which they will do, you'll have 4 teams on 10 points, and it comes down to scoring difference. Wicklow will be out of it. I think their scoring difference isn't good enough, but the other 3, it's very interesting. And Wexford haven't been relegated from Division 4, so that concludes our permutations. So back to Division 1. Mayo, we're very interested in Kevin McStay's approach because he left us to be Mayo manager, which still burns for me and Rory. But he did say he was gonna, he was kind of putting an emphasis on the provincial championship, and here he is now sauntering through the league, qualified for a league final that will take place 7 days before he plays Roscommon in the Connacht Championship. This is a team who seem to be having their cake and eating it, burning the candle at both ends, as Eamon Fitzmaurice says, momentum's a great thing. Just keep rolling with it. They're an interesting case study, but they are also playing really, really good football and blooding players and rotating his team. So they seem in a really good place.
Yeah, typical Mayo, isn't it? Just boringly predictable at this stage. They're playing brilliant football. They're probably playing the best.
Brilliant football.
football in the country. And that's our usual bias, not to say it's the most effective, but thankfully it is being the most effective at the minute. All over the pitch, they have top players and top players in form. What's all the more remarkable is you're thinking of the guys that they've lost, Lee Keegan and Oisin Mullen. Killian O'Connor playing a much lesser part. If you had said that a year ago that would be the situation, people would be saying, oh, Mayo's going to massively be struggling. They are flying. It's brilliant to see them going so well. There's a fear in me, I'm sure it's in most people in the country, that this is too good to be true, whether it's the rugby or not. I don't know in terms of the Grand Slam ahead of the World Cup year. But for Mayo to be flying this stage in the year, such a prolonged season, you're hoping that they can keep it, because we know that the All-Ireland Championship is better when Mayo are flying. So they are brilliant at the minute. Aidan O'Shea in the full forward, obviously a key change for them, was brilliant again against Donegal. Is just such a fulcrum, and his size and presence in there would be such a headache for any team to be trying to deal with. And then you've Ryan O'Donoghue in such brilliant form, Tommy Conroy, who just looks electric. There's always a fear post ACL, and I've rehabbed enough of them, like a real fear and a real feeling for many patients is that it is so tough to get that really top level pace back. You can get back to sprinting, but that absolute flat out sprint is often lost post ACL. And he has it. He still has it. So brilliant to see that as well. It was always a worry for me, but he's flying as well. So yeah, brilliant to see. Early in the year, too good to be true, are all things that are there to be considered. But we'll enjoy it for the minute. And as you say, Kevin McStay didn't seem to have any intention of a league final. He spoke well after the match. He seemed to be saying, look, we'll take this on. I honestly think Kevin McStay feels as if he's in dreamland and doesn't want to wake up. This is dream job, dream football, dream results.
Yeah. He's on a winning streak, Rory. First of all, he won the job, which he says himself was probably second to winning an All-Ireland for Mayo, was probably the hardest job in Ireland, was getting the job, like the interview process. So he tried
a few times, didn't he?
Yeah. So he got the job, and everything is just fallen into place. The only thing that's gone wrong from so far is the two boys, like Mullen emigrating and Keegan retiring, which we probably thought were two kind of fatal blows, but they've just kept rolling. And one thing you have to say, you mentioned Aidan O'Shea, fantastic, and they're also very pragmatic. They're using the attacking mark, which a lot of teams just seem to be ignoring. Mayo are using it as just it's a scoring tactic. It's kick the ball 30 yards to a man who will not drop it, and he give him an unopposed shot in front of goal. I don't like the rule, but it's there to be exploited, and Mayo are doing it.
Yeah, I thought it was an outstanding display by Aidan O'Shea. There's real clarity, I think, in terms of what his role is now as well. And I think Kevin would be very good on that. You know, there'd be no grey areas with Kevin. And I mean, one of the criticisms, I suppose, and I know Aidan O'Shea does get a lot of stick from certain people at certain times, but one of the criticisms, I suppose, that may be justified was that he wasn't chipping in on the scoreboard, and he saw, but like did they really hit their straps yesterday? Did they have to hit their straps? Now, look, at that probably says more about Donegal and where they're at, but I just think, like, Mayo, they're the best team to watch by a mile. They push up on every kick out, which is something that I love about them. I mean, they give you two options, the risky one or the agricultural one, right? And it's like they play risk-reward football at its best. They take risks themselves, but they're calculated risks, but they usually get their rewards as well. You know, like it's just, I don't know, the lad McBrien, David McBrien, which they pulled out at the full back. Like, where did they get him from? I mean, he just comes out of nowhere. This like clone of
all a problem area for them for years.
And a problem area going all the way back to maybe the 2012 All-Ireland final, of course, like when we saw how the ball was humped in. I mean, Aidan O'Shea got man of the match. He seemed to be having a personal duel with Sean Patton. And that was brilliant to watch. And I tell you this much, word to the wise, and I'm thinking Ethan Rafferty, Rory Beggan, Niall Morgan here. You go wandering with Daddy Long Arms around, and Aidan O'Shea, I mean, he is
basketball tackler.
He's an excellent. He's got those long arms. He gets the hand in. You've got to be very, very careful. Everything rosy in the garden for Mayo there. I think the one thing that I suppose heading into next weekend, I think they need to protect Matty Ruan and Dermot O'Connor. If I was Kevin, I wouldn't start either of them. Just because I think they're the best midfield pairing in the country by a bit of a distance. And I think you've just got to mind them. Now, it's a great opportunity. I mean, if you think about it yesterday, I don't think Enda Hessian even talked out. He was arguably one of their best players earlier on the campaign. I don't know if Owen McLaughlin talked. Again, another top-class player, like the kind of fellas that they were bringing on, Padraig O'Hora, Tommy Conroy off the bench, Kevin McLaughlin, Jason Doherty didn't even get a run. Another guy that can probably fill a number of different roles across your six forwards, and he even drop into midfield as well. I think he might have played a bit there for his club.
Killian O'Connor didn't play.
Killian O'Connor again. I mean, and I think, as Cora mentioned last night, the spread of scores that they have now across their team is a lot more impressive. They're not dependent on any one individual, which I think does make some other teams slightly more predictable. We saw the
centre half back is working for them too.
Working absolute, and you still have the likes of Stephen Cohen that can interchange there when Loftus decides to get on those bombing runs forward, because he's got, like, that's the other thing about them, their athleticism, their pace. I mean, I'd go so far as to say, if you beat Mayo in the championship this year, you'll be close enough to winning the All-Ireland.
It's early for that talk now. It's very early for that talk. Briefly, Enda and Donegal, forgetting the off-field stuff, which is obviously, you can say it's feeding into the general mood, but I don't think Paddy Carr is going to be blaming that for what's happening on the pitch. They just, you say teams maybe aren't fully formed at this time of year and we can't be judging them on the league. Things will look a lot different in a month's time. I don't know how different things can look for Donegal. They do seem a little bit rudderless and devoid of ideas and devoid of a certain totemic midfielder / full forward who retired during the winter.
Yeah, no, they're in a bad place. I think they just got hit by multiple blows. I think the off-field stuff and the late appointment of the management team and the pretty obvious public thing that it wasn't the first choice management team that was going in there. That's tough for them to be coming in. Now they got the brilliant bounce against Kerry, and they got that win, and you thought, okay, maybe there's something there. Losing McGrath was a massive blow on top of the Michael Murphy one, obviously, and one that they just didn't need. But the other players that seem to be showing relatively well up front. They had a couple of narrow performances, but they've had a couple of real hammerings too. Tyrone hammered them, and then Mayo has done a job in them too. To have the Tyrone game was in Omagh. The Mayo game being in Ballybofey, I have not seen Donegal capitulate like that in Ballybofey. Yes, Mayo were excellent, but Donegal are not a million miles off Mayo. So there's just, it's a camp that's not going well, a team that's not going well, and whenever you're in that position in the modern game, a team can really, really open up. It doesn't take much for you to take a hammering in the modern game if you're a wee bit off it, and Donegal aren't a wee bit off it, they're a good bit off it at the minute. Several players out of form, and their conditioning compared to Mayo looked well off. Again, as I said about the Louth thing and about their brilliant conditioning, a team, how everything is sitting within a team and the team's belief all has an impact on how you look in terms of your conditioning. If you're going out and your belief's gone and the mood's not good in the camp and everyone feels as if it's running against you, and then the past week and that circus outside of the camp, all of that has an impact, and it just looked as if the legs have laid on Sunday.
Yeah, they need to be careful. They need to be very careful, Mikey, as well, because I've seen this with my own county. You know, the free fall can be can become more exaggerated than maybe you would want it to be, and you could find yourself in Division 3 all of a sudden quite easily. The competition in Division 2 next year will be severe. You will have Cavan arriving in there potentially for Mana. And maybe, I mean, it could be
Gonna have a real Ulster feel to it.
He's going to, like, you'll have four.
Year,
There's a chance there'll be 4 Ulster teams, which will make things difficult for them. And I would probably suggest that Kildare and Meath will improve, as will Cork. So Division 2.
And Dublin's still there and Louth.
Yeah, still there at the minute. But like Division 2, while obviously a lesser standard, it's still going to be a difficult division to, maintain your status. And, in the blink of an eye, we saw what happened with Derry, for instance. Cork ended up in Division 3. You can free fall very, very quickly. And it's important for Donegal's perspective that they do everything in their power to try and offset that.
Yeah, so they're not quite down, but they really do need a ginormous score turnaround, which they're not going to get. So it's really between Armagh and Monaghan to take the second spot. If Monaghan beat Mayo and Armagh get beaten by Tyrone, it'll be Armagh going down. So commiserations, Armagh, on your relegation, because we all know Monaghan ain't going down. It's just the way it happens. And then I think we're running out of time, but it in reference to Armagh, another game you watched against Galway, not a classic by any means, 2 defensive teams. But one thing it did show us, which I think we've discussed before, but the joy of the high ball. Like teams, you've talked about it before, that we can get too bogged down in tactics and, systems and shapes and stuff. I believe that too, because sometimes the chaos that either an accidental or an intentional ball to the edge of the square causes, and particularly may I say, when a lot of teams now don't have specialist goalkeepers, I was at junior B level a specialist goalkeeper, as much as you can be, and you'd be terrified. A big high ball to the edge of the square with an ignorant junior B full forward and standing on the edge of it was bad enough. But like when a team actually plans it, like say Mayo, I know they're not playing the big long balls, but they're using their big man on the edge of the square. Why don't more teams just lamp the ball in? There seems to be this snobbery about it. We saw it in the athletic grounds. It works.
It'll be really confusing for the statisticians, because the effectiveness and the rate of return from a high ball in bound to be closer than a lot of other options of play too at the minute, particularly in the conditions as it was the last day. And I suppose the best high ball is the disguised high ball, and no better disguise to put on it than where the player is actually taking a shot and fluffs the shot a bit and it drops in. But you're right, it was a combination. You had Stephen Rafferty, or Ethan Rafferty, obviously a forward playing in nets, and he does have a tendency to really come out very attacking. He was caught a couple of years ago, wasn't caught last year at all that I remember, but it does look a wee bit wilder than a normal goalkeeper would come out at balls, and maybe more adventurous. He got caught, but you've also got, in the game, have we that many of the traditional fullbacks? So you don't, and most fullbacks were that fluid in terms of positions that there's no guarantee that you have your ideal man back there for ever dealing with a high ball. Yeah. So between that and the goalkeepers, and anyway, no matter what, when a high ball is dropping and 2 people are contesting it, that ball can ricochet anywhere. Whenever it can ricochet anywhere and you're 5 yards, 6 yards out from goal, or 3 yards out from goal, well then the goalie has minimal chance of stopping it, particularly if there's a wee bit of physical altercation on the goalkeeper in there, shall we say.
I thought that was a free out, by the way. I did. I thought he was fouled.
I had sympathy for him now as well.
Yeah, I mean, just because a goalkeeper is suspect under a high ball, and obviously he's had his issues, doesn't mean you could just go in and bundle him over the line.
Yeah, I felt the Galway. I suppose looking in from that, you can never trust. Unfortunately, you can never trust what's going to be given or not given as a referee. So from Galway,
I did get one view of it really, and you wouldn't blame the refs.
That's it. And from a Galway point of view, whether the ref give that or not, that's not particularly controllable. What is controllable, you shouldn't have the Armagh player on the goalie side of you. Yeah. The Galway wing half forward. Not sure who it was, but. He should have he let Mackin in at his goalkeeper under a dropping ball, and that would usually be, if you can do many things under a dropping ball, it's usually shield the goalkeeper. But again, it'll just mean that Pádraig Joyce will have to have at least 10 minutes or Gleeson over at the side dealing with high ball after high ball, because it is going to, if Galway are 2 points up in a game or 3 points up in a game, you can bet your bottom dollar what a team's going to be doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was a tactic we did see last year. Teams did lamp it in there. Rory, just finally then, I suppose Galway and Armagh, we were hoping for a barn burner and we didn't get it. And now the kind of the logic is that Armagh, having been quite swashbuckling last year, and McGinley is kind of he's overcorrecting and kind of maybe restricting the attacking like element of his team to the point where it's kind of being defanged. I suppose, Rory, the hope is that he finds the happy medium come championship, which I would imagine is the plan.
Yeah, I think it's disappointing to see, because I think one of the things that made them so attractive for the neutrals as well as their own supporters was the style of football that they played. Look, you could only imagine he's got to maybe flesh out a couple of different options as he faces into championship. Like, is it something that he's planning for Derry? Is that the way that his thinking is, knowing that, I mean, they'll have it all to do just to make it to an Ulster final, given their current form. And I think you don't necessarily think that you can be planning that far down the line anyway. But yeah, like they've got some unbelievable players on the inside line. They've got some of the best kickers that you'll ever see. I still think, getting upset about the way they're currently the way they've currently set themselves up, it's just a little bit early. Let's see what way they approach the championship, the Ulster Championship. I mean, one of the things for me with them, I mentioned this before, like it would be really important. Armagh haven't been in the Ulster final since 2008, Mikey. Now, that is a stark statistic when you think about it. Like in the time since Armagh have last been in an Ulster final, I think, have Antrim been there? Have Fermanagh been there? Have Down been in an Ulster final? Obviously, Donegal, Tyrone. I mean, that to me is something that they absolutely have to rectify. And doesn't mean there's added pressure on them going into this year's Ulster Championship. Look, it's such a hard championship to win. I'm sure there's pressure regardless of what, but we need to see more from them in the Ulster Championship this year. And if you're fleshing out a couple of different options in terms of game plans is what he's decided to do during this year's league campaign, maybe Ciarán McGinley will have the last laugh, and good luck to him. But, I think it's time now for Armagh to really push on in a championship sense.
Yeah, and just you were nodding your head there. I think you kind of think that the geezer has a plan here. Obviously, he hasn't all of a sudden abandoned what happened last year, but he probably realizes he needs a little yin to the yang.
Yeah, but I don't think that teams need a massive turn of the dial to move from a more defensive footing to a forward sort of more attacking footprint. Armagh last year and the previous couple of years, it's been really notable. They've had loads of runners coming from very, very deep. Their full back line has been bombing up the pitch. Their wing halfbacks are really, really bombing up the pitch. Very, very attacking whenever they're on the ball and the balls are going in. Rian O'Neill tended to stay in a wee bit closer to goal. The Vandrew Murnan in there, who is excellent. But you just think the same way as what Mayo have with Aidan O'Shea, having somebody like Rian O'Neill in there attracts so much attention of the opposition. But I think the breaks on the other players in terms of how attacking they're being isn't there this year, and it was last year. I don't think that's a particularly hard thing to put back into them. And so I wouldn't be overly worried. I think they've got spooked a wee bit by the number of goal chances they coughed up to Galway last year and ended up costing them in the All-Ireland Championship. And so they're trying to shore themselves up at the back. But I think they'll know they'll have to attack harder. Come the summer, come them sort of conditions, I think that's more suitable. The whole weighting of the provincial championship, I can see why it is being built up as that's vital for Armagh. But for me, particularly for Ulster teams, it's a wee bit different in Leinster. Connacht, because the draw this year slightly different. Munster, them top 1 or 2 seeds, which are lovely to get going into the group championship. For most of the big teams, they can plan to get them. in Ulster, it is honestly such a minefield as a player starting out, and you're in the first round of the championship, and you've maybe Derry or Fermanagh or Armagh, and you have 3 rounds. It is a lottery to see who gets to the final. And so you can't really be dependent on those 1 or 2 seeds. And if you do get there, all the opponents that have dropped out to get there, they haven't gone away, and they're sitting preparing for the round robin stage. In Ulster, to go absolutely all out to get through those 3 massive championship games, which are massive occasions, huge crowds, win a provincial title, huge celebrate, and then you're bang into a round robin competition where the other teams have been knuckling down, training flat out in preparation for this.
And it's 4 for Armagh because they're in the preliminary round. Enda.
So I can understand why it's sort of the old traditional logic is Armagh need to be winning that provincial title this year.
Maybe they don't. Yeah, you're right.
In terms of if they're wanting to push on from last year, and they ran Galway to penalties. Galway got to the Ireland final and weren't kicking the ass off Kerry. So Armagh can be thinking of winning Ireland. Now that sounds foolish at this place to say it, but for McGinley, the approach to try and win All Ireland is slightly different than the approach to try and win an Ulster Championship. And I don't think the relationship between an Ulster Championship winner and All Ireland with the new campaign the way it is will be worse for Ulster teams more so maybe than other teams, because you get put out in an Ulster first round or semi-final, narrow defeat against a good team, you're not a million miles away, you get 3-4 weeks to get your head down away from the spotlight, and then you're into the key part of the year, that round robin league, to then hit the quarterfinals. And well, it'll be interesting to see how that all pans out in terms of the lines of form of teams.
Yeah, no, it is. It will be very interesting to see. Enda, thank you very much. It is. There's a lot to be interested in next week, but as you say, it's all a game within a game, so we won't really know what way things lay for a couple of months, which is actually quite interesting when you think about it, if you don't think about it too hard. So Enda, thank you very much, and we'll be chatting to you soon, and we'll be back in a minute with Shane McGrath.
He hits it, it's over the bar! Oh, holy Moses!
Welcome back. We've been joined by Shane McGrath. Good morning, Shane, how are you?
Morning, lads, how are you going?
Hey Shane.
Yeah, all good, Shane. You were back in Nolan Park. You're a devil for punishment. You were there as a fan a couple of weeks ago, and at least you got to see your side win. You were there as a neutral yesterday. In the annals of a great rivalry between Waterford and Kilkenny, this one won't go down in the books really as one of the classics.
No, it won't. No, like the conditions were brutal, Mikey. The first half was a tough watch regardless of conditions, and I just think the Kilkenny public, I suppose, are still getting used to the short game, the short passing game, and maybe not always going forward and knowing that they're kind of recycling it back around, which seems to be the system they're going for, and they're trying it. And like there was one point in particular there yesterday. There was a point in the first half, and the Kilkenny boys were working it up the field, and they were going over and back, and they eventually went for kind of a cross-field ball, diagonal ball, but it was going backwards. Daisy Hutchison went straight to Daisy Hutchison. He popped it off to Jack Prendergast, and Waterford scored a point. And there was our Lord's name was taken in vain by a lot of people in Nolan Park when that happened, right? And I just suppose, even from when I was down there when they played Tip, they definitely have got better at it, like. And I think they only had 3 guys started yesterday that started against Tip. There was the world of changes beforehand, between the subs and the players. But Kilkenny definitely looked better. They're getting more comfortable at the game. Now the conditions were a factor, and the way I suppose Waterford were setting up. If there's one difference I would see in Waterford from the Tip game, is that Tadhg de Burka, he didn't play as deep as a sweeper. He actually pushed on a little bit, and he actually had a much better game. He was more comfortable. He kind of played very deep against Tip, I thought. And case in point was even one of the goals that Tip got. John McGrath popped it out to Jake Morris. Tadhg was very, very deep. Whereas yesterday he was more kind of the half back line kind of a sweeper. And you would have seen, he even won a few frees himself out around there. He scored a free himself, but he was more effective at giving and going. So I thought that was a positive for the Waterford lads anyway yesterday. The other things then is, lads, it's like I just don't know what game Waterford are playing at the moment. Like I said it before about Daisy Hutchison, I think he's one of the best guys, footwork, to find space. You know, he brought that over from his time playing Premier League soccer or playing over in England at professional soccer level. And yesterday, I think he touched the ball 15 or 16 times. And if it was maybe twice inside the 45, where he actually gained possession of the ball. So maybe that's something that Waterford they're holding in reserve, that they're going to keep Desi inside more, because at the moment he's playing as an unofficial third midfielder / half-back player, he's trying to give the ball into lads that, in my opinion, he should be getting, right? So maybe that's a play they're holding off on. Look, Kilkenny definitely.
Well, Wexford are playing Rory O'Connor as a sweeper, so I don't know.
Yeah,
There's a bit of insanity going on at the
Mikey,
moment.
like say, you were missing so many lads yesterday that there was a stage there where maybe some lads from the primary game might have had to get the call up, because like it's just it's crazy the amount of injuries Wexford have at the moment, Mikey. Yeah. I look, I had to go defensive yesterday too. I thought it was funny when I see Dermot Burns playing from playing the first half. He was up nearly at 45. Why? Because he had to push up way up the field because there was nobody to mark, sure. Everyone was gone way back, and that's because Wexford they had no choice yesterday but to do that, because they just didn't have the bodies. They knew if they don't do this, they could have got an awful beating. Now they still got bet fairly well, but what can you do? Like, and I just go back to Kilkenny for a second. Like the last 8 scores in the game, Kilkenny got 6 of them. So they finished strong. I think they really wanted it more. We know the Waterford lads are going to Portugal tomorrow, and it won't be the end of the world. You know, if I went through the lads who Waterford were missing, lads, Conor Gleeson, Conor Prunty, Darrell Lyons, Austin Gleeson, Stephen Bennett, Mikey Kiley, Jamie Barron, they'll all be thereabouts championship starters. Kilkenny likewise, Mikey Butler out, Hugh Lawler, Killian Buckley, obviously TJ, Adrian Mullen, Richie Reid, and of course their goalie Owen Murphy. So look, it is what it is, but I do think it allows Kilkenny. I think the game of the weekend next weekend will be Kilkenny and Cork. Why? Because I think both of them can go at it more so than Tipper Limerick. Because Cork have a bye in the first round, Kilkenny have Westmeath in the first round. So all in all, what did I take from yesterday, Mikey? That diversity is alive and well in Kilkenny, because at half time there was a game of football played in Nolan Park.
No way!
So,
that is hold the front page.
Yeah. So there you go, lads. They are doing their bit in Kilkenny at the little go games, game of football. Very enjoyable to watch. With having our cup of tea. Myself and Park Lodge. So there you go. Yeah. So that was the main thing yesterday that I took from it. Anyway,
I texted you during the game, Shane, because probably shouldn't do that. I know you're on live radio, but I wanted to see if you had any idea what had happened towards the end of the first half, and I think it was a free. Waterford were attacking. They had a line ball, and it was cut out by, I think it was Paddy Deegan was back in defence. But this, I'm going to hold my phone up here. Sorry to those of you listening. There was somebody in Waterford kit on the pitch, and like, this is how on the pitch he was. You see him?
Yeah.
Like, he was strolling down the sideline, but he was like 2 yards on the pitch, strolling down to go behind the goal. So we have rumours now that Tadhg de Burke is wearing an earpiece during matches. We have Davies' friend behind the goal, and now we have Waterford selectors just sauntering onto the pitch, Rory, in Nolan Park. Waterford, they're lawless.
The pageantry of it all, it's fantastic. It's good crack.
Not a bother on him, by the way. There's like three inter-county hurlers thundering into each other, like just behind him, and he just looks over his shoulder as if to say, "What are you lads doing here?"
And you mentioned thundering into one another. I actually thought I enjoyed it. I thought it was a real full-blooded physical contest. I mean, it lacked quality, but the conditions is. Conor Moore famously takes off Tiger Woods. Conditions were tough, and the TV sometimes, I think, maybe can not give you a sense of how bad the rain was. I mean, it looked like it was a very heavy sod. The ball, hard to get up off the ground at times, slipping out of a lad's hands. Two very skillful teams, so it might be hard to gauge what was useful. I mean, the late hits and flakes being handed out, they were plentiful. Davey got his customary booking. I thought that was which we could hear by the way, which was picked up on the effects mic. Yeah, and I know we mentioned.
He often is.
Yeah, I know we mentioned Desi Hutchinson. He ended up scoreless, no goal chance in the first half. Kilkenny didn't create that many goal chances either, mind you.
No, I don't think either. Yeah. Well, Tom Barron had a goal chance. It was 42 minutes gone, Rory, and it was 9-8 at the time. They would have 9-9. If we go back like to the top finishers, I suppose. They're not worried about it hitting
Mm.
the net. It's low finishes, and it would have been an ideal low finish. But look, I suppose maybe Tom Barron is not accustomed to scoring goals. Whereas if that maybe falls to Desi, right?
Desi, yeah. Well,
He's finishing it low. Let's say. That's my opinion. But
yeah,
no,
yeah.
Desi was just to his left at the time. He was in that area, I suppose, to be fair. But look, you're talking about small things. Neither goalie had a save to make. It was just one of those games. It was highlighted last night about the puckouts. Everybody pushed up. And then what I thought interesting was when they did push up, Kilkenny lads all pushed back as well. So, like, will there be kind of a high press we're used to seeing in the football? Will that start happening in the hurling now as well? Like, as regards, like, not letting Barry Nash get the ball, like, for example, our team's going to say...
We were saying this all last year, Shane. Why are teams, like, I know there's a gamble at the other end, but allowing someone like Barry Nash to have the ball in 20 yards of space is not a solid tactic.
Yeah, I think that we now realise how good Barry Nash is. I think the other teams realise this guy is what he's doing, and if they go through stats and they go through ball in and where it's coming from, there'll be a big, huge red circle around Barry Nash all the time. And I think, I think they'll have learned from the teams that maybe got close to them. How did they do it? Push on them, pressure. If you can, try and keep it going for as long as you can, and then try and bring in the cavalry to try and finish it off, like, if you can. Because if you're looking for the same 15 to do it for the 70-75 minutes, that's where teams are getting caught, I think, So if they can build a panel and have 5 or 6 guys finish it off, maybe they have some chance. But lads, just quickly on the goals thing, Mikey. I know you were saying it there already, and I found it interesting there, going through the amount of goals scored in the league, right? And we all spoke about Limerick being the benchmark and the Limerick Wexford game and everything. If you want to try and beat Limerick, you probably need maybe minimum 1. You're looking at maybe 2 goals to try and get over the line. I think we'd all agree with that, wouldn't we? Like, say, as regards, right? So I'm just looking at the Munster teams now who know they're going to be playing it, right? Cork have scored 12 goals in the National Hurling League. Clare have scored 14 goals. Tip have scored 14 goals. Waterford scored 5 goals. So for me, right, I think that Cork, Clare and Tip are saying, like Tip definitely, from just being there as a fan and being at the games, they are going for goals. Like, Clare have 14 goals, Cork have, say, 12 goals. They're conceding, like, Clare have only conceded 3, Cork has conceded 4, Tip have only conceded 3. And I'd say Waterford have scored 5, but unfortunately they've conceded 9. So I'm sure that's something they're going to talk about in Port this week, in that, if we want to beat Limerick, I suppose we have to go at this and get more goals. But I just found it very interesting, lads, that Tip, Clare and Cork, the amount of goals they've scored, haven't conceded a lot of goals. So I'm sure that they have got that out of the league, that, look, we have it in the locker to go at this and score goals. Defensively, we're not too bad now. We're not too bad. We're fairly tough. If you look at Limerick then, like, Limerick scored 2 goals yesterday, Mikey, wasn't it, Jay? So they scored 50% of their league goals yesterday. So they've scored 4 goals altogether. So again, they will know that they can probably hit that 25, 26 point mark most games. Yeah. 30 points in total. But I found it interesting that the other teams will have really come to realize now we're going to get goals, and they've got to try to get goals in the league. Like.
Yeah, and it just, the Davy kind of overcorrection, Rory, I suppose, where people can be quite, they're very quick to judge him anyway, because they kind of know kind of his process, and whether he plays 1 sweeper or 2 is the only question. But Shane spells it out well there. In a league where you need to be, or in a Munster Championship where you need to be scoring goals and not conceding too many, Waterford are bucking the trend and conceding plenty and not scoring any, and their best goal scorer is playing as an auxiliary midfielder or something. Like, he's toying around with ideas. Obviously, he's getting to know his team, but it all seems a bit extreme at the moment. And if you're a Waterford fan, you might be kind of wondering, when's this master plan going to kick into gear?
Yeah, and Davy is Marmite. I mean, people either love him or hate him, and I think he kind of revels in that too, to a certain extent. I think from their point of view, it wouldn't be hugely concerned. I didn't realize they were heading off to Portugal. I think Portugal is back, obviously, on the agenda for an awful lot of teams. I think
never mind that international banking crisis.
You can get, but like the intercounty managers aiming, like, and lads that have been on those, like, they'll tell you, you can do an awful lot because you basically become a professional athlete. I mean, you've probably been on a couple of them, I'm sure.
Yeah, Shane. Yeah. You get a month. You get a month in, Rory. You get a month's worth of work between meetings and training sessions. You would, like, because like most people tell you, it's no secret. Like, you're doing 3 a day. Like, in kind of NFL terms or whatever, in American sports terms, you're there. You're there in the morning, like in your morning, you do a tough morning session, on usually a pitch session. Afternoon might be a gym session, collective gym session, or kind of stuff like that. And you're getting your lunch and you're eating very well, and it's a great week, lads. A highlight into professional life. And in the evening, then you're probably back on the pitch doing a pitch session, maybe playing an internal game, working on something. Go away, get something to eat, and you're coming back at 7, 8 o'clock in the evening, and you're going through video stuff in groups and. Like that's just I suppose a snapshot of what it is, but that's what it is really. Like it's 3 group sessions and then probably video work or tactical stuff. Throw in some fun stuff throughout the week too, like have a bit of crack, go play golf, play a bit of soccer, whatever they want to do.
Bonding stuff.
A bit of bonding stuff as well. But like when you write it all down, that would take a month to do at home to get together that much, to train that much, and I suppose that's the benefit of it. Like it's massive what you can get out of it. Like so.
Yeah, and just a word on Kilkenny, Mikey. I just in relation to something old, something new. I thought Billy Drennan was excellent yesterday. I know most of his scores came from frees, but some of the free taking, I mean, in those conditions, people shouldn't underestimate. Like, incredible ball striker, and his ability to win his own ball, which, as we know, is a long-standing Brian Cody mantra, going back an awful long way. He's got good vision, brings other players into it. There's a hint of TJ off him, even with the glove, just in terms of the way he carries himself. So I think he's a major plus. He'll definitely start come championship, and that's a big bonus for them. And then something old, I thought Conor Fogarty was outstanding. And
brilliant, yeah.
Outstanding. Absolutely outstanding.
Yeah.
I know they gave man of the match on TG card to John Donnelly, but I don't know what match they were watching. I just thought, like, flying into tackles, the leadership he brought, got a great point at one stage, hooking, blocking. I would hazard a fairly strong guess that he's the real leader in that team. I know they still adopt the old county champions, has to appoint the captain, but Conor Fogarty sets the tone for everything good about Kilkenny, and I thought he was brilliant yesterday.
Yeah, he was immense, and I've had battles with him, Rory.
Oh yeah, of course.
But I tell you what, like I was looking at him there yesterday, and I suppose the viewpoint from the media box in Nolan Park, it's you're so close to the game. You're over there in the smaller stand, and he's in some shape. Yeah. I think I'd say the professionalism of the guy is unbelievable. The way he minds himself, like he's been a constant there now for you're going on 10 years. Like he won ball yesterday, and he won dirty ball, and he just did the sympathy with it. He got a super point when they really needed it. Himself, John Donnelly, Owen Cody, Massey Keown. The 4 of them, they really stood up now yesterday, and they got on an amount of ball. But I would agree with you. I thought Conor Fogarty was immense yesterday. I also think Blanchfield is going to be a massive option for them. He's very confident on the ball. He's able to win the ball. You had a few Ballyhale lads back there around him as well yesterday. But the Conor Fogarty thing, thought he was immense. Billy Drennan's ball striking, lads, is exceptional. In a day yesterday where people were nearly, people were struggling to find their feet in the stand, like walking out along afterwards because the amount of rain that fell and was so slippy. And the pitch, it's an immense pitch, lads, and how it held up as good as it did, because there was a camogie game on before it as well, between Kilkenny and Cork, like, and so it had that to deal with, and it was tearing up all the time.
And a game of Gaelic football.
And a game of Gaelic football at half time. And so, like, but his ball striking was brilliant. And I have to say, Padraig on the other side Padraig Fitzgerald.
Yeah, really good free taker.
He was immense at it, like, because that's like they tried a couple of guys before they put him on the freeze there yesterday, Padraig Fitzgerald, and very, very confident ball striking over it as well. And also, lads, just one more thing on the water thing. Paddy Fitzgerald in from Ballygunner, he's class, lads. Like he got a bit of attention yesterday. Not a bothering him. He just shrugged it off. He got a serious point, and he struck out a clean strike, struck straight through the ball, straight over the bar, not a bother. He wants the ball. He doesn't mind. He's able to mind himself. He's still very young. I think as the summer goes on as well, like I think it'd be unreal if you had Desi inside, right? And if Paddy Fitzgerald is good enough to start or not. But this guy's going to have a big summer for Waterford. He's going to be a big part of their plans. I really do feel that. Like.
Yeah, it does. Kilkenny at least do seem like a team kind of begin to take shape, because you look at the full forward line, Drennan, Keown, and Cody, and then you're throwing TJ Reid in there in some capacity as well. You know, they do like the strength. Kilkenny have never gone away. We all know that, but like there does seem to be there's a team forming there.
Owen Cody, they struggled to get Owen Cody into the game at times. I felt yesterday, and
but he played as a midfielder.
And I think maybe that I like he had one of his quieter days. On a more general discussion point, and again, look, Shane may have a bit more information. I know Seamus Harnedy was definitely taken off with an injury, and I saw Ronan Maher was substituted after 27 minutes for Tipperary. Injuries are cropping up right across the board. I presume that was an injury for Ronan Maher as well, because I wouldn't imagine he'd be taking him off in a tactical sense after 27 minutes. So teams are starting to pick up more knocks. I mean, a lot of the players that Shane mentioned in relation to Waterford, Conor Prunty and Austin Gleeson and these guys, like injuries are a concern. Like, and they don't have a huge amount of time to rectify this, and championship is only a couple of weeks away now.
Yeah, that's it. And Decky Dalton had an injury, and
Decky
Dalton,
Dalton,
you probably heard that. David Burke had a cruciate injury with Galway there
is
last
gone.
week.
Yeah.
So, like as you said, like it's just the panel is key, like, isn't it, lads? You know what I mean? Like, I mean, one or two guys. Ronan Maher, I think, will be fine.
It was only a precautionary, was it?
Thing.
Yeah.
Good. Even at that stage of the game, Tipper well ahead. Like, but that's it. Sir, the injury, like, if it's whoever has the strongest panel, lads, because one or two guys are going to go down.
We kind of know who that is.
Well, we know who that is. Like,
Congratulations on your 4-year-old Limerick.
Even take Dave Fitzgerald, lads. Like, I mean, they will appeal it, and the way things are going, he probably will get off it. Like, but I mean, like, if he was missing in a round robin against Tip, like, it's a massive push on for Tip. That guy's averaging 3-4 points a game from play. Like, so trying to keep your best 20 alive and well will also be key. You want it, like.
Big challenge.
You don't want to be in the situation that Wexford find themselves in, where they're going down to play Limerick without Matthew Hanlon, Damien Wright, Dermot O'Keefe, Liam McGuffin, Conor. Jesus Christ, when you say the names out loud. And then we helped Limerick out further by our customary throwing in of one high ball into the net from Mark Fanning. That's a gamely occurrence now. But Limerick didn't need any help here, Shane. And this is said, Wexford tried to park the bus, which was never going to work. Limerick scored a couple of goals, which is unusual, and gave game time to more lads who are kind of fringe, trying to push into this starting 15. We keep coming back to it. Like, their strength and depth is terrifying. You say it's all about the squad and the panel, but Jesus, like, it really is kind of scary, and they're all staying fit at the moment as well, which also makes it all the more terrifying.
Yeah, and if one or two of them do get injured, it doesn't, like, because of their strength and depth, it doesn't really bother the thing. Even watching Kyle's goal last night there, like, I mean,
handy few steps now. Handy
few steps now.
Handy few steps.
Touch. But like the power of Kyle O'Neill coming through first of all, and then to lay it off to Kyle Hayes, like, it's that's frightening to try and face up against that. Like, and then see Aaron is back, and doing fine, hitting his frees, and he won't go down as one of his greatest finishes ever for the goal. But like,
did it go in off his backside?
Well, he had the hand up anyway. He was claiming it, so I don't know. Like, but
it hit him. I think it hit his knee or something. Like, he didn't know a whole lot about it anyway.
But do you see the presence of him, lads? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I mean, even when the ball is dropping there, like, there's a nervousness in around because of the likes of him are in around there. Like, whereas you mightn't have against, if you're playing a different opposition or against a different player, that they know that if I don't control this ball perfectly, Aaron Gillan is going to finish it. Like, and there is that air when you're playing Limerick of, this has to be on the money. If we make a mistake, they're going to punish us. But look, I have to say, parking all that aside, like, Limerick did what they had to do. They're in their league semi-final. I personally think they will really go at this now, and they'll go to win it, just because of the depth and the amount that they have, the talent they have in the panel. They could put out a 15. They could leave 6 or 7 guys off, and it'll still be a very, very strong team. And I think that's why they'll really go at it. I think it'll be a really tough game for Tip next weekend, whether it's Saturday night or Sunday, hurling under lights. I suppose that's another thing, Rory, we were talking about there, I suppose, yesterday even. But I just think that the Wexford lads are just so depleted, Mikey. I think they'll regroup. they'll try and get the band back together and get them all going again, because what's coming in Salt Hill will be very tough. And I really do feel for the Wexford lads. I do feel for Dara and the management team at the moment, because look, I suppose we knew they never had that real depth in their panel that the top 2-3 teams have. But then to keep losing guys and watching even D O'Keefe going down in the last couple of plays of the game against Cork after getting on a world of ball for them, it's just it has to be, you know, energy sapping for them, like, because they don't have the lads to come in and replace them. So look, they'll regroup and hopefully they'll get those lads back together.
We talk about their squad depth in Wexford. I'm going to get very parochial here, because I'm from a place called Timon in Wexford. It would be known more as a football club, Timon Cameras. Ian Carty, wing back on Grode Hegarty yesterday. He outscored Grode Hegarty. He scored 2 points. Timon don't have very many intercounty hurlers in their history, so that's me being very parochial. But a Timon man outscored Grode Hegarty.
Go up on the wall, Mikey.
I think so. I think I'll have to try and find a good picture from that one. That was so yeah. Shout out to him. There's not too many wing backs who outscore Grode Hegarty in a game, so he came from my club. So fair play to him. So maybe there will be a couple of diamonds unearthed out of adversity, but there's an awful lot of adversity, but a lot of diamonds at the moment. Rory, a word on Cork. Already through to the semi-final, obviously. The notable thing here is yet again they've finished very, very strongly.
Well, they're going right to the end, and I think that's been a hallmark of Pat Ryan. It's a long-standing one, going back to when he was manager of Sarsfields in Cork. Like, they were well known for playing right for the full 75, 76 minutes and never given up, and just keep going right to the whistle. And they've dug out a few big wins as a result over the course, going all the ways back to, I think, Tipperary in the Munster League. I think they were a couple of points down, heading down the home stretch on that one as well. I think all the ways back in January. So I think they've shown that there's a good spirit there. They have added a few. They've added a good few players to the mix. I think there's a few still to come back, and I think it'll be a really interesting team selection on Saturday. Hopefully, as Shane said, it's not under lights, because I think intercounty hurlers, and it's probably a discussion point maybe for another day, but they tend to not like playing hurling under lights for obvious reasons, just the flight of the ball, etc. But I don't think it can be. It's in Nolan Park anyway. There's no lights in Nolan Park, and if the game is in Nolan Park, it's probably going to have to be a 3 or 4 o'clock throw-in. So, because I think they have home advantage. But yeah, Cork are going well. Like, they were in this position last year, went to a league final, actually played a cracker of a game against Kilkenny in the semi-final below Páirc Uí Chaoimh, and won a game late on as well. Dara Fitzgibbon scored a brilliant goal, I think, towards the back end of that fixture. But look, the season sort of tailed off after a very flat performance in the league final thereafter. So I think this time round, yeah, there seems to be a little bit more cut and a little bit more edge to them. I think we'll but there's some big tests coming down the tracks. I think, like, if they can get over Kilkenny, and like that's a big if. The chances are then it's a Limerick tip in a league final. I think you have to embrace these types of things, and if it's a chance to play Limerick again.
Let's remember who tipped to win the league. Yours truly here. But let's be honest, none of us are. You won't say no to a national title, but
well, I haven't won the league in 25 years.
Yeah, it's. But this league seems to be going on for a long time. Personally, I think we've seen too much in the Hurling League. Neutrals shouldn't have to watch as much Hurling League as we've watched this year. So I'm going to ask you, Shane, because I know you probably have it all worked out in your head. What's your top 3 in the Munster Championship at the moment, on the evidence of what you've seen?
Jesus, Mikey. Like, come on, man. Who's my top 3 in Munster?
Yeah.
So, like, oh god, it probably would be easier to give you 5 out of the 6 lotto numbers on Wednesday night, like, to be honest. I look on the basis of what you've seen.
That's all you can give us,
right? Obviously, obviously Limerick. Okay, that's a no-brainer. I think if Clare can get them all on the pitch, I do rate them. I think they're a very good team. I think they were a shadow of a team that are in the semi-final last year. So look, not to be going on and on and on about that. I do think Clare will be thereabouts. All right. And I do think, okay, that if we can, if Tip could avoid keep everyone fairly right, they could give it a real rattle. I mean, there's a great feeling about the group in Tip, lads. There really is. And I haven't said it yet this year, and people are saying Tip are back. I don't think we're back, but we're definitely on the right road. If they can keep everyone right, like, I think it was a toss of a coin between Tip and Cork. I honestly do feel that. I don't think Waterford are there yet. I mean, their home games ran in Thurles. I think that's a blessing for them in disguise in the game.
They've won one round robin game since it was invented. So
yeah, look, and that's actually a factor. So look, jeez, Mikey, Limerick, Clare, toss of a coin, Tip and Cork. I'll just go Tip because it is Monday morning. It's just easier thing to say. All right.
Rory, would you be saying that it's Limerick, Clare, and Cork? Or
I think Cork. There's still a lot of convincing from a Cork perspective at championship level, and I think we have to judge. Championship is different to league. We know that. So, in a championship context, can you trust Cork completely? That's the question I'd ask. I mean, I felt last year against Galway, they were the better side in many aspects, but still lost the match. In a game like that, maybe you should have, could have. And there's nothing worse in sport. So will the Cork team that takes the field in the first round of the championship be hugely different to the team that played Galway when they were beaten in Thurles and knocked out of the championship last year? Might be a huge amount to change. It might be very, very similar starting 15. And then you're into, could you trust them? I don't know. I just know Tipperary have the right man in charge in terms of being on the line. They won't be found wanting. You'd hope Cork are likewise. But yeah, I wouldn't necessarily disagree with Shane. I do honestly believe there is a major design flaw in the championship that allows a Joe McDonagh Cup winner go deeper into the championship than two of the Munster teams. And I don't know how you get around that, but I suppose it does add to the cutthroat element of the Munster round robin.
Rory, it's like Gaelic football in Nolan Park at halftime in the match. It's all about developing the game.
Yeah. But like, look, I'm not saying that the Joe McDonagh winners shouldn't be accommodated, but I do think, if we're looking at ways by which we would like to inject slightly more integrity into our league hurling, I think we should be looking at trying to investigate ways to give people different options or avenues. One of the reasons the Football League is so successful is it's directly linked to championship now. Hurling doesn't have that because it plays two separate leagues that aren't linked at all. So they're things that you would hope are in discussion somewhere.
I think I'll need another coffee before we discuss that here now again. We'll leave it at that. Shane, thank you very much. And thank you to Enda earlier, and thank you to Rory. And we'll be back on Thursday to preview the football and also the hurling semi-finals. So chat to you then. Good luck.
How much longer will the referee allow? Dublin lead by a point, and there's the whistle. It's over. It's over.
We earned it by winning the last two matches on the road, and that's not going to be taken away from us.
But what I love in hurling, I love players that will never give in.
He hits it. It's over the bar. Oh, holy Moses.